What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gooner channel, 100% dedicated to the Arsenal, who, as we all know, are by far the greatest team the world has ever seen, and certainly one of the busiest in the transfer window so far, although there are no signings across the line yet as we come to the end of Monday. Don't think any of us were really expecting it, although one we can say is pretty much done, and it's the worst kept secret in football, and that is the signing of Kai Havertz for around 65 million from Chelsea. Now, how do we know this one's nearly done? Well, Arteta, who's still in Spain on his holidays, gave an interview to Marca in which they asked him if he was considering, if Declan Rice was good enough to bid 100 million euros for, and his answer was very straightforward. We don't talk about players who are not at the club. The follow-up question was then, is Kai Havertz, the question was, so the signing of Havertz is out of the question, to which he immediately replied, talent has a price, and at Arsenal we're always interested in young players with experience. I repeat, I'm not talking about players from other clubs, but in the case of Kai, he's already shown a lot, including Champions League. He's a talented, versatile player and is only 24 years old. Sounds a bit like we're talking about Kai Havertz. There was, of course, following that, pictures of the club doctor on his way to Spain, where Kai Havertz is celebrating, along with other Chelsea players, the wedding of Kepa Arrizabalaga, and it's said that he was on his way out to do the medical, which we apparently doing. We're travelling to Kai to do. He was apparently on his way to undertake at least part of the medical for Kai Havertz signing to Arsenal. Then there was Kai Havertz and Kovacic pictured together, looking very smartly dressed with the caption, "We're ready," which was immediately pounced on as a sign they're both leaving and they're both happy, and Chelsea fans weren't happy about that. But if that isn't enough for you, if that's all a little bit too cryptic crossword, then, well, today, pictures of Kai Havertz in next season's gold trim shirt have appeared and are all over the internet. So I think we can say with some certainty, I'm not Fabrizio Romano, but here we go, right? Now, this signing, as we all know, caught us all by surprise somewhat. It's not a position that we're short of in a real sense, unless you're really bringing in a first-team player. I can't see him replacing Gabriel Jesus very quickly. I certainly don't think he's going to come and play on the right-hand side instead of Saka. And game time in those two positions is going to be limited all the way through the season, even though we have Champions League to play. He's not going to come in instead of Odegaard, which would be another natural position for him. And we don't often play with a false nine. Perhaps he could play off the left, and that's not his strongest position. So, recently, the speculation has all been around the fact that maybe Arteta's grand plan for Kai Havertz is to bring him in as a left eight. We know that if all goes well, Granit Xhaka will be leaving to go to Germany, and that leaves a gap there. Now, Emil Smith-Rowe, who's currently scoring a goal a game in the Under-21 tournament, and an absolutely beautiful goal he scored yesterday as well, he has apparently been retrained for that 8 position and said himself in an interview recently that he hadn't been fully fit all season, which would explain why he hasn't played more. We also have Vieira, who's played in that position before. So Kai Havertz could well be the player to come into that position, but if we do sign Declan Rice and keep Partey, there's all kinds of permutations here. But Declan Rice is somebody who can, or is thought of as a player who could develop into a left 8 for us. All of these issues will resolve themselves at pre-season when we finally get a chance to see where Kai Havertz is going to play. It's not that much different from last season when we were wondering if Zinchenko was coming in as a midfielder or as a left-back, and then he actually created the two positions into an inverted full-back, and he kind of played both. Now, I know that there are a lot of Arsenal fans, and I probably have to count myself as one of them, that really didn't want to see Kai Havertz come to Arsenal. I haven't seen enough of him. Fair to say it's ruffled a few feathers amongst the supporters. But today and late yesterday, we were also told that it's ruffling some feathers within the camp itself. Apparently, Eddie Nketiah is really unhappy that we're signing a player who ostensibly plays in his position. And I think that makes sense, actually. Of course, if you add it up, it is far more likely that Kai Havertz is being brought in to play the kind of position that Eddie Nketiah has been playing. Now, when you look back at this season gone, there's some disappointments. There were some high points, but, we ultimately fell short. One of the reasons that we struggled a little bit was that we lost our best players. So we lost Saliba and we lost Gabi Jesus. But losing Gabi Jesus didn't impact us nearly as much as everyone expected it to, thanks in large part to the good form of Eddie Nketiah. So let's have a look at that. Because before the World Cup, before the injury to Gabi Jesus, Eddie really wasn't getting much game time at all. But as soon as we came back from the World Cup, our first game on Boxing Day against West Ham, he really had a great game. Absolutely stepped up and took his opportunity to shine. He had this lovely back heel for Saka in the first half, which Saka put away but was unfortunately offside. When his opportunity came up in the 69th minute, he took it with some style. It was a really good game for us. We'd gone a goal down and turned it around to 2-1 and started to answer some of the questions people said that we were top at Christmas but would fade away after the World Cup. The next game was the away game to Brighton, which when you think of how well Brighton played all season, it was a really good result for us. We managed to beat them 4-2 away. It was a fantastic team performance. Martinelli had a shot which sort of rolled across the line of goal. Eddie was there, Fox in the box, scored probably the easiest goal he scored last season. The next game after that was Newcastle at home. Really boring match, hugely disappointing. Not many chances for anyone, but it was a really quiet game for Eddie. He never looked like scoring and gave the ball away often as he passed it. He had played every minute up until that point, and as we went into the game, the FA Cup game against Oxford, Arteta stuck with him, and this time he scored 2 beautiful goals, real strikers' goals, good running, round the keeper, clinical finishing, everything you want. And at this point, he's on 4 goals in 4 games, and everything is starting to look really rosy. We go away to Tottenham. It's, I know we've won the league more times at Spurs than they have, but it has been a very unhappy hunting ground for us in recent years. So we were all cautious, optimistic perhaps, but certainly worried that this would be a game where they beat us. They still had Conte in charge. Remember him? But the performance was outstanding. Now, actually, when you look back at the match, Eddie had a chance really early on, which he shot directly at Hugo Lloris. Shortly after that, Saka also shot directly at Hugo Lloris, but this time he palmed it into his own goal. Then Eddie had another chance, which hit his head and just went skew all over the place. It was cleared as far as Partey, who almost scored goal of the season from about 25 yards out, but hit the post. Not long after that, Odegaard scored, and we wrapped up with a really good second half defensive performance. Frankly, we could have played 2 or 3 games against Tottenham in that form and they wouldn't have scored. So whilst it was an overall really good game for Arsenal and for Arsenal fans, it was quite underwhelming for Eddie. He won only a third of his duels in that game and made only 15 passes. But he had been on the pitch for the full 90 minutes again. So he was getting the minutes that he has always said he wanted. Now, the next game after that, this is Eddie's game, basically. It will always be remembered as Eddie's game. Manchester United came to the Emirates. We beat them 3-2, just like days of old. It really reminded me of all those great Wenger-Ferguson era battles, particularly reminded me of the game I watched. I think we beat them 3-0, which was Ljungberg's first goal. Came on wearing a number 8, which I thought was risky, scored and got a yellow card, and we fell in love with him instantly. But those kind of epic Man United-Arsenal games of old, this was one of those. Rashford's early goal, an absolute stunner. It was levelled by a fantastic cross, a delightful cross by Xhaka. Van Bissaka fast asleep. Eddie Nketiah with a header for the equaliser. And then Saka with a bit of anything you can do, I can do better. Scored an absolute worldie, cutting in from the right and scoring with his left foot into the bottom left-hand corner past a diving De Gea. And somehow their diminutive centre-back Martinez, who we nearly signed, scored an equaliser with his header. But late on in the game, a newly signed Trossard plays the ball to Zinchenko. He cuts it across. Odegaard kicks it on. It arrives to Eddie Nketiah in the last minute of the game with his back to goal. He sort of spins the ball's waist high and he kicks it with the back of his heel past De Gea. pandemonium. 3-2, fantastic result. Everybody's amazing. And, well, we start to hear this song. At that point, you're thinking he's on 100 grand a week. He's playing for the team that he's been at since he was 14. He's finally gotten his chance and he's taking it. He's showing the world what he can do. The happiest of times for all of us. And I think all of us are really pleased when we see a product of Haaland do really well. Now, obviously, he started life at Chelsea, but was let go at about 14. So he's had that kind of feeling to it. You know, he's finally proving what he can do. The next game is the Man City game. And despite Arteta making significant changes, I think 6 first-team changes, Eddie kept his place. Now, they're really, you know, at that point, Eddie was going great guns and he was our only real recognised out-and-out striker. So it was kind of normal that he'd play. But this was not a good game for him. He made 7 passes in the whole match, lost half his duels. And although the game itself was much closer, it relied on them. Nathan Ake scored the winner for them. But with all the changes we'd made, it looked like we'd started to close the gap on Man City. And I was really positive about it. The game immediately afterwards, though, and look, let's be honest, none of the Arsenal players covered themselves in glory. We went away to Everton. They just sacked Lampard, installed Dyche as their new manager. And as a result, they got a bit of a bounce back. But none of our players really turned up. It was pretty poor for Eddie, as he was one of the least effective players. He had 1 shot off target, 22 touches, only 8 accurate passes, and he gave the ball away 6 times. So so that was famously the beginning of a mini wobble that we had. The next game was Brentford. I know we should have won it. VAR robbed us of it, but essentially Eddie lost 80% of his duels and had, whilst he did have more touches and passes, still only managed a single shot off target. So this is now game 3 where he hasn't scored in a row. Game 3 where he hasn't scored in a row. We then have the Man City visiting the Emirates, and Eddie Nketiah had a free header early on in the first half, which he missed. Then we had, obviously Tomiyasu gave the ball to Kevin De Bruyne. He scored. Eddie Nketiah, with his best move of the first half, found himself going through on goal. He got round Ederson, took a shot, the ball was cleared off the line, and then just out of nowhere, when it looked like the referee was signalling that it might have crossed the line, in fact he was signalling for probably the softest penalty we've ever had. It wasn't that far after the VAR incident at home to Brentford, and I kind of felt like they were trying to give us a bit of a repair job penalty. Saka scored it, and I remember thinking at half-time that we'll kick on now. We've been playing really well all season. We'll give them a game, and we may even come out of this with a win, but it just didn't go that way. And in the end, Eddie had a night to forget. Other than winning the penalty, he lost 3/4 of his duels, made only 11 passes, managed only 2 shots on target. So going into the Villa game, what a drama game that was. Ollie Watkins obviously scored early on because of a mistake by Zinchenko. Then Saka took the roof off the net with a great equaliser. Buendia steps over a ball that comes to Coutinho. He puts them 2-1 ahead. And in the second half, Zinchenko scores his first goal for Arsenal to level it 2-2. In the 6 minutes of injury time allotted because of the time wasting in the game, Jorginho, crying for the ball, gets it, shoots from miles out. It hits the crossbar, bounces back off of Emi Martinez and goes in. Everyone's delighted about it. With the last minute of the game, Emi Martinez rushes up for a corner. We're desperately trying to score the equaliser. As a result, he's out of goal. Vieira passes it to Martinelli. We get that fantastic moment in the season where Martinelli knows he's going to score and celebrates before he kicks the ball over the line. But for all that it was a fantastic drama-filled game, Nketiah had 2 good chances, failed with both of them. And he did win his duels, but he had 29 touches for the whole game. And this was the 5th game in a row where he'd failed to score. So the hot streak is definitely over. And he's dropped for the game against Leicester. We saw out a really good 1-0 win. Eddie came off the bench, had 20 minutes, really threw himself around, but just had no impact whatsoever. The next game, he starts on the bench again, and this time he gets 18 minutes. He's through on goal against Pickford. Pickford saves it. His only real chance on goal. For the West Ham game, he's on the bench again. This time he comes on with 6 minutes to go. No impact whatsoever. Arsenal 3, Southampton 3. He's on for 18 minutes and only touches the ball 5 times. Now, Manchester City 4, Arsenal 1. Eddie got 10 minutes and 4 touches. He wasn't used in the 3-1 victory over Chelsea. He only played 10 minutes for the fantastic game against Newcastle. 4 touches, no completed passes. And for our most abject game of the season, I would say it's either the Man City or the home defeat to Brighton when we really needed to pull something out of the bag. Arteta threw on Eddie for 13 minutes. He had 7 touches, 1 key pass, but nothing. For the Forest game, he was on for 27 minutes and only touched the ball 4 times. And for the final game of the season against Wolves, he was on for 11 minutes, had 1 big chance and 6 touches, and won none of his duels. Not one. So he's had his little moment there in the season where it's all looking great, but by the end of it, you have to say some things really stand out. That this is a player whose goal involvements really come down to scoring. If he's not scoring, he had an assist for Martinelli in there. In fairness to him, he made what should have been a great assist for Odegaard, but Odegaard didn't put it away. Eddie Nketiah essentially does not contribute very much if he's not scoring, and he is not as clinical in front of goal as he needs to be. He's not, I would say, any more clinical than Gabby Jesus. The truth here is that we're all really fond of academy players, but I would say to you now, if you were to put Eddie Nketiah on the market for, let's say, 25 to 30 million, which seems like a reasonable ballpark, who do you think would be coming in to sign him? Who do you think? It's not going to be Man City, it's not going to be Liverpool, it's not going to be Manchester United, it's not going to be Chelsea. The big clubs are not coming in for him. I do think he would be a fantastic player for West Ham, and there is a chance, of course, with us trying to sign Declan Rice, that he could be a make-weight going the other way. Now, it was discussed that Emil Smith-Rowe or Following Balogun would be a good make-weight. Emil Smith-Rowe is apparently staying, and Arteta's convinced that he's going to have a great season. I am as well. And Following Balogun, look, if he's not going to sign a new contract, then at the end of this year, he has only a year left, and he'll walk for very little if we don't sell him now. We're never going to get the same amount of money as we would. So we may be looking to sell both Eddie and Following. I'd love to see Following get a chance, because I think if he gets the kind of minutes that Eddie did this season and he doesn't do it, well, then we've answered that question as well. Now, Eddie Nketiah, if you remember in the All or Nothing, said, well, let's listen to him.
Hello listeners and welcome back. Delighted to announce we're joined in the studio with Arsenal footballer Eddie Nketiah.
Good to be here, man.
Arsenal fans, when you hear the noise, it's always like we need a new number 9, Upper's gone. Are you sort of sitting there thinking, you know what, I can be a solution? Like, if you give me the minutes.
That's my biggest frustration. I can't remember a time I've ever had 3 games in a row to actually play. How can you judge someone? Give someone an opportunity, If I start 3-4 games, I don't score, that's on me. But if I start one game, I'm starting okay, but we haven't scored, and I'm off at 59th minute. What am I meant to do? I'm coming on 8-7 minutes to come and save the day. It's difficult, bro. But you want as a player, like an opportunity, 5-6 games in a row. You don't really feel like you're going to get that opportunity. So that's probably the hardest thing.
So this isn't really me saying that Eddie's had his chance. He put it very clearly. If I get 5 or 6 games in a row and I don't do it, it's on me. It is on you. I don't know if I think he would be a fantastic player for a team like Brighton. I hope that we are able to do some business. The key thing here is he has a 5-year contract on 100 grand a week. And I could imagine him not getting much game time. I put a post on the Facebook group and a lot of people came back with the idea that maybe we should loan him. I don't know how he'd feel about the loan. I don't know how much truth there is to the rumours that his feathers are ruffled by the arrival of Kai Havertz. But it's not hard to see why they might be. Because if you've got Kai Havertz and Eddie Nketiah on the bench, Eddie Nketiah has not scored off the bench this season gone. Not once. You can't really call him an impact player. If he starts, there's a chance he'll score goals, but not much. He started 9 times last season, scored 4 goals. But if he doesn't start, it's not looking great, is it? I really love and respect all the Arsenal players for what they've achieved in just getting to the point where you can put a shirt on and go out and play. And no one likes to see it come to an end. Perhaps this competition will really fuel him up, but it's depressing. It's disappointing to hear him saying that, or to hear reports that he's unhappy about it. I think we may be at a natural point now. If we can get some money for Eddie Nketiah, then we should be looking to do that. And that makes more sense than a Kai Havertz signing anyway. I think it was an opportunist signing. But look, that's enough from me. Hopefully you found that interesting, or that's... Anyway, that's enough for me. I'm really keen to hear your thoughts. Would you keep him? Would you sell him? Would you loan him? Would you start Kai Havertz ahead of him? Is there anything that you've seen from Eddie Nketiah that suggests he's better than Kai Havertz? All these questions and more. Leave your comments, hit subscribe and click like. Till I see you again. Be lucky. Lots of love.
No, big up Nketiah. No. We're talking about single fans who are singing, "Our defense is in safe hands." Nketiah in the room. That's what they were saying. In safe hands. Nketiah in the room. Our defense is in safe hands. Nketiah in the room. Let me just say it. This guy, he ain't scored since that song came out. You know them way there, blah. Man ain't scored a goal since that song came out. What's going on, bro?